Speaking of interesting characters, though, I have one with me today, Erick Smith, Erick Smithe.
There you go.
Yeah,
I don't have to mispronounce your name on purpose now.
from Cloudwaker Tea.
You see, by doing that, you mess with my business. Cloudwalker, like cloud, and then walker.
Welcome to JagaVision. So Erick has been on the show a number of times. So Cloudwaker Tea was actually how I met him. And then in between, there was a time when he was working at different places, doing different projects. And then he's kind of come back full circle to this awesome project. He is, I consider, an ancient tea specialist. He's translated a book in Taiwanese into English on tea. You should totally check it out. Cloudwalkertea.com, right? Is where you're selling it. So you want to, we have the link in the description on this video. You want to click there and check out some of his work. We carry some of his teas as well, albeit they're kind of tasters, because when you buy from Erick, you're getting the full brick or the full cake of Pu-Erh. And when you buy from us, you get a little bit of taster. And a little bit of background, there's Shou and Sheng Pu-Erhs. You have these raw and ripe Pu-Erhs. Some are aged slowly. Some go through an accelerated fermentation, depending on the style.
You're offering the teas here is a great way for people to come and experience the teas made well in a great environment.
Try it.
And relatively easily accessible. Whereas sometimes people are hesitant to commit to an entire cake of a tea, especially if it's a really premium cake without trying.
What is the highest price cake you have in your collection right now?
For modern, like $350 or so.
$350.
And then for
old.
For like 1980s, a rare 1980s cake, I think, is 12,000 US.
12,000 US. So it can get up there pretty fast. We don't carry any of the 12,000 US tasters.
If you want, you can get one. But it seems
you can hook a brother up.
So, well, I can give you a pot. You can have a special tasting session. That's one thing.
That would be insane.
No, I'd be
really cool.
I have.
Really?
Yeah. I won't sell samples.
Sure.
Because it's,
But if we did like a session,
for sure.
That'd be so cool. Okay, yeah. I want to try this stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah, but anyway.
And in light of that, I've been getting a number of requests for sample sizes. Mm-hmm. People sort of on the fence about, oh, should I get this? And so we've recently put together a sample set, which is 4 different teas. Mm-hmm. I think one of them you have here, and then it's a white tea, a black tea or a red tea, mm-hmm. Depending on what you call it, a raw pour and a ripe pour.
Oh, nice.
And
okay.
Gives a person a couple of pots. So usually takes a couple of pots to get used to making a tea, I find.
Totally. Yeah.
For most people. The first pot, you get some of it, and then by the second time you go around back to it, usually you're able to draw.
I always tell people it's that first pot that is generally the least exciting until you sort of get to know the tea and you sort of adjust your brewing processes so that you can find an extraction ratio that is pleasing and really represents for the tea.
I have customers and friends that use alternate techniques to avoid that. They'll put the tea on their altar for a week or meditate with it and try to like talk to the tea to find out how it should, like
give it a name.
I'm by far not the most eccentric person in the tea world. I know it seems that way at times. I'm up there, but I'm not. I don't even rate.
Dr. Midnight, everybody.
I'm not even in the top 10. In order to really love tea and commit your life or a large portion of your life to this process, you have to be at least daring, if not
a little bit weird.
It's it's like that poster in the 80s what people would have on your desk. You don't have to be crazy to work here, but it helps.
Yeah, that's, you know what, that
you tread the line.
That is awesome.
Between genius
yeah, I could
and madness.
say that is like, that could be like the motto of the industry.
They should carve that above your.
You don't have to be crazy to work here, but it helps. Yeah, that's good. But let's make a tea while we're talking though.
This is a tea that is not on my website. So Jared essentially has exclusively. I have the exclusive sort of contract for this particular factory to North America.
And are you currently sold out of this tea? Is that what's happened?
No, I have it. I'm too.
Okay, you're
I'm like you.
Yeah.
It's there. It's photographed. It's written up. It's ready to go.
It needs to go up on the webpage.
And you have to press the button.
You press the button. That's a big step.
Which will
pressing the button.
It's likely to happen this week. It's just some of these teas.
Sure.
You almost don't want to sell them.
Oh,
Like I know I
fair.
can get more,
Yeah. I know.
but
I know.
it's
Yeah.
like
You kind of want to drink them. I have
Well, I
some.
do
I
drink them.
buy like 500 to a kilogram of certain teas. I have a red Milan Shung, for example, that is just so glorious. It's a fully withered, Phoenix Mountain Dansong that's been taken into the world of crimson tea or red tea.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. Like it's just
Yeah.
got so much going for it. And that one is one that's hard for me to just share, I guess. Yeah.
I'll share it. But
yeah.
like this cake that we're going to be drinking today, I call it Rooster. Technically, it's in Chinese.
I love
it's
people drinking it with me.
Tribute to the
Yeah,
ancestors, but
right.
it's got roosters all
Sure.
around it because it was made in the year of the rooster.
Okay.
And it really has a punch to it. If you want to drink this tea, the only place
It's here.
in North America, the only place that you can drink it in person,
Okay.
other than if we do an event. Or something.
I love our caveats.
I like
I love our caveats.
I like the idea of having an event.
I
where,
agree.
you start out, you work through, start out with a younger. This is
Sure.
a younger tea, although it's a powerful and very high quality tea.
I want to do
Start
this.
with a younger tea and then move into something like really.
Have a whole afternoon. I'm learning with you that 10, 15 minutes for tea just isn't going to do it. You kind of need an afternoon, if not an evening. If not an afternoon and an evening.
This is a lovely pot.
Okay. It's a Jilu. But you would.
This is a lovely pot, but one of the biggest things. So let's go with Gaiwan.
Okay.
So
You want that neutral environment.
The reasoning why is I've spearheaded the founding of the World Tea Championship, which has improved vastly from year to year.
Yeah, totally. It's going to be even better next year.
And this year is going to be the best year. The best year
right.
yet, as it's going to be featured in the symposium.
It worked out. I think it was cool. Like just having people. I think what you're talking about is that people had to use these tools, right?
Well, the thing is, not everyone has I Ching teapots.
Right.
I have many. I have
Sure.
a problem with buying I Ching
I'm
teapots.
starting
which
to feel your pain.
I promised to give a shout out to this really cool company in Japan called. I want to say like Mitsuzaki.
Okay.
And they're on Instagram.
We're gonna. So Eric's gonna send us who it is.
I'll send the link.
and then we'll put it into the description. Can we do that? We can do that.
He's been coming up with some really fantastic teaware, but I've been getting some really great Juni, which is red clay teapots, and like from the 80s. The reason why sometimes you want to go back to the 80s is because that's when they closed the mines down for making that type of clay. So they're not making any more clay. You can still get the high quality.
There's some
clay,
really interesting purple clay from Japan.
but a lot of the modern stuff is mixed with other materials.
It's true. Yeah. What do you think? Is it terrible? You can tell me. Be honest.
I have no idea. I mean, it's similar to.
This is tokonome yaki. So it's
Sounds good to me.
okay. And I just love how thin it is and how it's got a really interesting shape. But tokonome yaki is actually really popular for this color,
Okay.
which I find is
I
sort of similar.
Sort of like a terracotta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, these are good. I've never gotten into the side handle style myself. I know a lot of people, like with the global tea hut people, they'll use large sort of side handled pots. Some of them for I call it the California school.
Okay.
Somewhat derisively. But where they'll have a giant one and they'll pour into bowls.
Sure.
And the only reason I say that is because it's actually a very good way of making tea in that it's very easy.
In Japanese pots, there's always the hole here instead of at the top center. That's interesting because then you can hold here.
Yes.
You're not supposed to pour like that, although a lot of people do.
No.
You're supposed to pour with two hands in the Japanese style.
Okay.
So, whatever, right?
See, this is why I do Chinese tea, because there are no rules and no one's gonna.
Well, there are.
Actually,
you're always making me aware of rules I didn't know about.
There are principles.
I'm not supposed to point this at you, right?
Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. Unless I want you to leave.
Well,
and then this is a beautiful pot. This is for gyokuro.
Okay. All right. So are we drinking Japanese tea today, or are we drinking this other tea? Because we're on the clock here.
We're just talking about ceramics.
In Taiwan, in the old days, they say in the bar, you never discuss three things: politics, religion, or kung fu.
Oh.
And the reason why you don't discuss kung fu, which I've done many times, and I know this to be true, is that it always ends in a fight.
We're going to try and hold off on the violence for the camera. Okay, so.
You and I are men of peace now.
Yeah, that's right.
And technically, a tea bar and a bar are two very different things.
Yeah, things get a little bit more hairy in a tea bar.
Yeah, you can get. Well, you can get.
They're pretty peaceable in the bars. Yeah.
Are they now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
my main question is, why aren't we preheating our Gaiwan?
Okay, All right,
So
that's a good question.
We're also going to lay out some of the principles of Kung Fu Tea, which, if you're watching this and you're interested in participating in the World Kung Fu Tea Brewing Championship, this will be a very similar setup to what you have there.
Sure.
So we'll make a couple of notes, which if you're watching at home, you can learn in advance, or if you're already practicing Kung Fu Tea, we might be able to add just a couple, that troubleshoot a little
What's
bit.
interesting is if I'm at home, I preheat, and if I'm at the bar, I often don't. And the reason is I've just literally
Because you're busy.
Well, I've washed it, and also I feel that the rinse that I'm going to give
Feel how
it,
cold that is.
but the rinse I'm going to give it is going to get it to a thermally stable place for me to brew with. Now you're the expert. I love
Always
to learn
preheat.
from you. Why would I preheat if the rinse is going to do the job of preheating?
Well, the warm pot already begins the process of waking up the leaves.
Okay.
And plus, it's classic. So
No, I like that first answer.
What I'm offering
Not that there's
is not the scientific answer. I'm not pursuing tea from a scientific perspective. However, I do have a pretty good handle on the classical principles of Kung Fu tea brewing. And just like some people will say, oh, you don't have to rinse your tea. Okay. And what Daniel Ville, a very highly respected tea expert in Vancouver, would say is, and he's not talking about Gyokuro and green teas and things like that, but for Pu-Erh and other types of tea, you don't have to rinse your tea.
Sure.
But if you don't, you're not doing Kung Fu tea. And that's period, full stop.
Would you use this?
We still
this
haven't
full
rinsed
chunk?
this.
Oh yeah, that's right. After all of that, I'm just.
You see,
ignoring
if you
I
did,
okay.
for example, if you did that in the tea competition, you would be docked points.
I believe you, but
Minus 2 points. Let's
Yeah.
keep it track. He's got he's got 10
no,
points.
we've
We've already lost 2.
To my credit, I'm aware that I'm supposed to rinse the teapot first, but I choose not to. I also prefer the drinking temperature of dropping my hot extraction into a cold decanter because I think that I'm going to be able to taste the tea better by cooling it. Now, I would explain that, and I'm aware that I'm supposed to also
I get
preheat the
I get the
decanter.
dropping the temperature down. That's in Taiwanese style, and to some extent in Japan, and lesser extent in mainland China. In Taiwan, we would use what's called a wenxiangbei, a smelling cup, which is sort of like a shot glass, ceramic shot glass, and you first pour into your cup. One advantage of that is that you get to smell the tea, and then the second is that there it is, the tasting cup set. And then the second is that it brings the temperature down.
So you put the tea in. You basically you put the tea into your cup here. You lid it, and then you flip it, and then when you remove this is an empty cup now. You smell the cup. It's the purpose of this cup is to smell the aromatics of the tea.
Yeah, and that sort of yin yang, phoenix dragon flipping is done more for oolong, because you have a stronger interest in aerating your oolong than you would with a puerh. However, most of the time, if we were doing puerh, we would just take it and put it directly in.
And then smell it rather than flipping it. Okay.
And this means I'm done.
I'm done. Okay.
You don't have to say I'm done. You don't have to say
just
I'm
do
leaving.
it. It's
You
just
do
like
that.
tapping
That
the
means,
table is thank you, flipping the cup is.
But if you're friends or family or close associates with someone, like in Taiwan, we just sort of, no one really does that very often. You might do it at the first time. It's considered more of a familiar relationship.
Or you do it.
Can dispense. No, you wouldn't. You can dispense with that.
Okay, interesting.
I don't do it with every single time. Just like I might slurp the tea the first time, but if someone's sitting there slurping every single sip of their tea,
you get excited.
It gets kind of boring.
Notorious Eric gets excited.
Well, the reason I started this tea company is to avoid boring.
That's why we live, man. We live. Yeah. So 7 grams doesn't look like enough to you, right? You've told this to me before.
I'd go a little bit higher.
Yeah, you would, right? Now, when I break that
Freestyle.
up better. Okay.
A little more. Go. Done. Enough.
Really?
Enough.
Okay.
Whatever that is. I refuse to use a scale.
I know you do. That's why I don't show you the numbers. I have a scale hiding under this tray that Eric's not allowed to see.
He made me use a scale once, and
he was in tears.
No, he said
on the inside.
Bryce,
on the inside.
A friend of mine, Bryce, and I, who lives on Salt Spring, did a remote one.
93 degrees boiling?
Yeah, no, 99, 100, and then let the bubbles settle. Where Jared had sent me a kettle, and I think we were drinking Milan Xiang, a tea of Jared's, and he said you have to use exactly 5 grams. And I said, oh, I'll just eyeball it. He said, no, you can't. You have to use the scale.
Who said this?
You did.
Oh, okay.
To me. And it was remotely done. You could probably find it online if you want to prove it. And then I put the scale on the table, and I'd already put what I thought was the right amount of tea into a tazo, which is like a tea scoop. And I stuck it on there. 5.0 grams.
Amazing. I love those moments. So, that's great. You know, when I
use,
follow the Japanese tea ceremony
loop.
instructors, they do the same thing. So the Japanese tea ceremony instructors, they're just like consistent every single time. It's always the same amount. Or baristas who are portioning out their milk, they don't need to weigh it. I weigh my milk, but they don't weigh their milk. They just eyeball it. But when I weigh their milk, it's consistent every single time. It's incredible. Often to like 1.0 gram of milk. So we're talking 880 grams of milk. They'll do it like 181, 179. They're so close. The teachers, though, the Japanese tea ceremony teachers, they're doing 1.5 grams.
Yeah.
They're like every time 1.5, 1.5 within like it's like a.
You've done it thousands of times.
Oh, exactly. Right.
So automatic.
So I believe that, but
a big part of
different densities of the puck of the cake or of the cake of the cake or the brick
grinding machine
is going to take up different volumes in the gaiwan. So for me,
this is going to be
I'm a big mass believer. I love mass. So if I'd broken up that chunk a little bit better, then it would look fuller in the gaiwan. So that's my concern.
The only advantage to leaving it in a compressed form is that it'll open up more slowly. Like personally, I would have broken up a little bit more, but don't worry about it.
I still can.
The reason why you avoid breaking up small chunks is because really you want to keep the leaves as intact as possible.
Is that a small chunk?
It's acceptable to me.
So you wouldn't break that
It'll break up by the third.
All right. Okay.
Don't worry about it.
I won't.
There are no mistakes.
I will not
in Chinese
break it up.
Tea.
Just so you know what we're working with. Do you want to tell them what we're drinking?
Drinking in 2017 Bulang Mountain Old Growth Blend Cake, which I'm calling Rooster, available exclusively through JagaSilk.
Amazing. Okay.
For brewing until next week, when it'll be available on my website, cloudwalkertea.com.
It smells amazing.
This is one of the teas. I think this is the tea that you're.
Yeah.
When you did a cupping for your staff, that they responded to the most.
Like it was like a vanilla oak thing happening.
And this one I find
just pouring on
is very not only easy to make, but it also delivers a very.
That's not how full I feel.
Sure.
More or less.
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
You could go up to there technically.
Where? Right there.
Stop.
Okay. That's perfect.
Okay. But the energy of the tea, the feeling of the tea is much more apparent. Like immediately apparent, even to people who aren't familiar with this type of tea. Some of the
empty it.
Go. Yeah. This is teas out of the national park in China. It's beyond organic. There's no way to certify it as organic, but there's no need. It's as pure as
pure can be.
Me.
That's not pure.
It's my Pinocchio gesture.
There you go. Okay.
Oh. If they could make that like a cologne out of that.
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of do use these teas as a cologne. Like I'll use it as like aftershave and stuff.
I believe you.
It's great.
It's a fairly expensive tea.
It's actually cheap for that quality, Jared.
I guess Stancha has some like $400 pots and stuff like that. What qualifies a $400 pot versus a $17 pot?
All right. Well, let me tell you something about that.
Okay.
Okay. They had this Mansong, which is a famous mountain where the prices have really gone up in the last couple of years. Really nice. And they were saying we're paying 6,000 Canadian dollars a kilo to make this tea. And I have a infinitely better tea from the same provider, which is not currently on the website, but Jared might bring it in after he hears this for like, $300.
Interesting.
And they're their 200-gram bricks, same weight would be 1,000.
Do you think it's worth the difference?
Mine's better.
Yours is better. Okay. All right. Amazing. Yeah. So why do you suppose that somebody might disagree with you?
One of the individuals in this conversation is a property developer, and one of them is a tea expert.
Okay.
Therefore, I trust my opinion.
Okay.
And if you don't have confidence in any endeavor,
why are you doing it?
It hinders you.
Yeah,
I find.
Sure. Okay.
One of the reasons.
But I love. That's just why I like science, though, Eric. I really like to have analytical evidence. Like, for example, if I say my matcha here is fresher than this matcha here, I like to be able to say that's because this one was milled yesterday, and this one was milled
Sure.
6 months ago.
But we're not.
So I love analytical.
But you realize that I'm not selling the emperor's new clothes here.
I
My goal is to give you a. I used to, in the old days, I used to call it, now we're going to make a melt your face off oolong.
Yeah,
like people wonder why on Instagram I make photos which look sort of psychedelic.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's what this tea does.
Right. It's,
And if you're not getting that experience,
just get this guy drinking Pu-Erh.
keep looking.
You'll start off a little bit like
I would
reserved,
I would
and then you
recommend-
get him drinking Pu-Erh,
Yeah, that's one small.
and then
I would recommend starting your journey, starting your search
yeah.
at 633 Courtney Street, Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. JagaSilk, the hardest tea shop to get into and drink tea on North America. And that's not because they have a bouncer outside, although you might consider it.
You're hired.
And the velvet,
Yeah.
not me, somebody else.
Sunglasses, suit required.
Because Jared's only open 4 hours a week for drinking currently.
Fridays, 12 to 4.
We need to expand that to at least a couple of days.
Well, look at what we're doing right now. We're doing JagaVision. Other days I'm doing roasting tea, I'm milling tea, I'm brewing tea, I'm fermenting tea,
but feel this,
blending tea.
taste this, Steve.
Yeah, there's a little bit.
So this would be the reason why to break open that chunk, because we're just starting to get the opening. We're just starting to get that called run, which is that sort of. If you've ever walked through a raspberry field when the raspberries are just coming into bloom, where you get that, like everything's full of those that.
Yeah, I used to harvest raspberries at my grandma's.
blossoming fruit taste. After moving back to North America, I got my start at a yoga studio doing events on Commercial Drive. It's not there anymore. It was called Yundi Yoga by Susan Horning. It's a really, really switched on place. We drink great teas and sit around, do a floor sit, and by the end we'd get like 18 people. It was spillover, and then that led to those 6 mountains sort of representing the largest collection in the world.
That's a faux pas, right? Tapping the decanter.
No, it's fine. It's like ringing a gong. It's infusing the power of the vibrations into the tea. No, there are no mistakes. But we used to sit around. You do this association, like you'd smell the tea, and each person has a different impression and experience of each individual tea.
Right. Raspberry fields.
And you might get anything.
Right.
Eucalyptus. There are no.
Well, I think I was getting vanilla and camphor and oak. Yeah. And there's something sweet that I think is what you're saying for that raspberry.
No, it's more the blossomy, like the raspberry blossom, like what you would inhale, because not only is Puerh's prebiotic and probiotic, so not only does it affect your gut biome, it also affects your lung health once your gut biome is brought back into order. I find that although Puerh is probably the tea which would most benefit a lot of North American people who have sort of high fat, high sugar diets, those people are also the most resistant to trying it because this is sort of working against that program. So if you've just chomped down a Big Mac and drank a Coke, you're not going to be able to appreciate the subtleties of this tea. Unless you're
kind of true. That's kind of true in general, though, right? Like I think
genius, but
if you overstimulate your palate with tons of fat or tons of sugar or tons of perfume, it gets harder to taste.
Spice often.
I was just having a pasta yesterday, and I had a salted broccoli, and then I had the pasta, and the pasta tasted undersalted, but I had a couple bites of it, and suddenly it was perfect. So it's like, sometimes there's just a recalibration after eating or drinking things out of order.
Sure, and it may only take 1 or 2 cups of tea to be able to recalibrate your palate.
Yeah, exactly. But so you can even though your post Big Mac and Coca-Cola,
whatever.
But there's also a resistance you build up over time, though, right? Like you can actually, there's something to be said about just having a couple cups and then kind of recalibrating yourself. But if your everyday is kind of an overstimulation of sugar and fat, it does get harder to taste complexities of flavor.
Yes, and it can take some time. Like I had a health issue recently where I had to sort of go and rebuild my gut health, and a lot of that involved sort of prebiotic and probiotic foods, which included tea, but also things like, miso soup and
Sure.
kimchi,
Yeah.
sauerkraut, all those sort of traditional fermented foods, really. And this is puerh falls into the category. Some people call this a greener style tea. It's not technically a green tea. It's a category of one, and it's categorized as a post-fermented black tea.
So I have a question I haven't been able to figure out from the literature. So when I'm making a tea in the style of Pu-Erh,
Yeah.
I'm not actually putting it through Kilgreen? Am I?
Well,
how does the PPO enzyme
this is a very
deactivate? And we only have 5 minutes.
Okay, this is a very interesting question. So puerh gets complicated when you talk about the Kilgreen or Saching, because a lot of people who are doing green tea in Yunnan are coming from places like Anxi, where they would do a lot of green tea, and they're applying the same methods they would use for green tea to puerh.
Right.
Traditionally, puerh should not go through Kilgreen.
Right.
So this tea has not gone through Kilgreen.
But I smell a bit of Maillard. Like I'm getting some cooked sugar. Is it heated in any way?
Okay, it's
during processing.
Like imagine a wok the size of, about your arm's width and diameter, and so they're frying it in order to break down the cellular walls of the
Because
tea.
it's how hot are they getting it? Because if you go over 85 degrees centigrade, you start to deactivate the enzyme. So are they doing just like a light?
I'm a
fire?
collector, preserver, and appraiser of
Could
tea.
you-
I don't go and make tea. I don't know what temperature they use.
Could you ask them?
I can ask.
I would love to know the answer to this
Okay,
question.
so-
Can you ask you have great connections in
sure.
Yunnan. I would
And I
love to
speak
know.
Chinese, which helps.
Yeah, I would love to know how they get it, because
You realize this is going to bore them. And it's not an exact, like,
yeah.
Traditionally it wouldn't have been exact because it would be a
You
wood
might
fire.
be surprised. I
Well,
think sometimes they get excited to be asked. It's like asking a cook, how did you make this pasta? Some people get jazzed off of being asked. Not everybody, but some people do. And I mean, you're gonna know your
Well, I know
better than
that
me.
for ripe puerh tea, like in the 1970s when they developed the ripe puerh, or I call it dark puerh, they did an excellent job. And then through the 80s, some very good examples, and then the 90s was just an absolute S show of not particularly well made teas. But now they often have like biochemists and like really
controlled environments
to produce the teas, and they're producing really excellent teas again of the extremely well executed in some cases, and they have to maintain so that it's essentially a composting of the tea, but they have to maintain the tea within a 2-degree.
Well, that makes sense, because
range
you want to keep it's like our
for
kombucha
for 6 weeks.
But you want to keep that basically that fermentation happening, and you want to not, like, if you make it too hot, the bacteria will die. You make it too cold, and the bacteria go inert. So keeping it at an ideal temperature so that they can achieve the results that they're looking for. There's also something really interesting, which is fermentation curves. I had the owner of Pu-Erh on the show one time, and he was actually doing lower temperatures, and then he'd increase it, and then he'd drop it.
Get off my cloud, man.
They do it.
That Stone
They
song?
do it in cooking too, where like if you like if you roast from A to B,
This is an excellent
straight line.
This is an excellent illustration of Jared's perspective on tea and mine.
I just love this stuff. It's interesting.
But more of a classical Taoist, just sort of like
Sure,
follow your feng liu.
But I love that they're keeping it within
going
2
with the
degrees
wind,
centigrade.
just sort of.
That's geeky. That's great.
Yeah, but I'm not a tea geek.
Yeah,
I'm a collector.
You're a collector.
I'm the most dangerous man in tea.
Oh my God.
The reason I say I'm the most dangerous man in tea is because although in the past, everyone lies about something in their life.
Sure.
Okay. One thing I don't lie about is tea.
Okay.
And I also spill the beans on people who are doing things which I don't necessarily agree with.
Okay.
So it would be presumptuous, of course, to say that I speak for the tea, but in some ways, representing the traditions accurately. And like, for example, a lot of tea cakes are blends, but there's also another style which is called baoxin, which is like to cover the heart. So the inside might be tai ji cha. It's like like lower level, sort of like bottom of the valley, like crank them out, kind of, like we call it plantation tea. And so they put that in the middle, and then they wrap the outside with higher quality leaves.
Yes, I remember
people.
this. Yeah, you saw
And
false heart.
You might get, you'd get a little bit of a hit of a higher quality tea, some of the aromatics in the first sip, and then it all just falls off the cliff like lemmings. One piece of etiquette for those at home: always ask before you touch the teaware.
Okay.
It's
it's
quite.
Did you do this or did I do that?
You did that.
I feel proud of myself. I didn't. I normally put the nose
and
of
also you don't want to direct the nose of the kettle or the teapot or the pitcher
at your guest.
because it's considered rude.
If you point it at yourself, does it mean that you want to go?
And that's interesting. We've got two Chinese. Is it the same in Japanese? Is that 8 in Japanese also?
Hachi. Yeah, that is. Yeah.
So we got 8. Very lucky.
That's cool. That's like pachi pachi.
That's the kind of car I drive. I drive an
Congratulatory.
Oldsmobile Delta 88.
Yeah, you do.
I do.
That's good fortune on the lid of our.
And if you too would like to share in this good fortune,
is there a name for the lid versus the base of the gaiwan, or is it just all called the gaiwan?
Okay, gaizi.
Gaizi
Is the lid.
Okay.
Wan is bowl. So gaiwan, lid bowl.
Gaizi.
That's why they call it a lidded bowl.
Lidded bowl. Okay, there you go.
See, he has to test my Mandarin.
According to the literature,
Only half right.
85 degrees centigrade for 30 seconds to 5 minutes is generally enough to kill green. Many ways to fire the leaf, but usually consists of exposing the leaves to temperatures of 85 degrees C or hotter. That's how the temperature you need for deactivating the enzyme. Sorry. Okay, keep going.
How interesting. Allow me, sir, to pour you one out of respect, master.
204. Ask the farmers. Okay.
I'm not
They're
asking. I'm not asking any farmers.
Say my boring friend. Talk to the collector.
What's in it for me?
Just
to annoy my suppliers.
My annoying friend says it will help him with marketing this tea, and he's just curious if the tea leaves during
How about instead of asking how to market this tea, you show them a picture of my face and say this is what 5 cups of it does to you.
I was almost there. I almost got the information I was looking for. Okay, that's Eric, everybody.
I think it's much more.
That's Eric.
I think it's a much more makes a much more compelling case than this will be between 25 degrees and 26 degrees. Like you come in here and get loaded on Rooster with Jared.
200.
Bring your friends.
260. I'm curious. I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna ask around. And you everybody come get loaded.
I mean, one with the Dow.
So, you want to say anything about this tea or about anything? We're at the end of the show.
I think I've said enough.
You've said enough. If you want to find Eric, you go to cloudwalkertea.com. You want a tea that's going to do this to you.
If you want a tea that kicks like a mule,
then you want to get the
nicely with perfumey aromatics.
You want to get the 2017.
That you can still bring home to mom.
It's a Boulang raw Pu-Erh cake. Cakes and bricks are different. Cakes are circular, bricks are square. Oftentimes the cakes have just a nicer.
Traditionally, the higher quality material would be used for cakes, but not always.
Not always.
But
awesome.
357 grams is a cake. A brick, classic size, 250. Although some people make larger ones.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Awesome. We're done.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't often shake hands. We're more huggers in this family.
Yeah, we are. But we got a little bit violent off camera. There was a lot of raspberry jam. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. We'll, I'm sure, hang out soon and have some tea together soon. And we'll make some really old Pu-Erh maybe too and make an event.
We have to make it a session.
Yeah. We'll make it a session. We'll make it a session.
Stay
Thank you so much for watching. That's JagaVision. That was awesome.
Okay.
You